Sports games are a very interesting breed, where many games put you into an entirely new environment and have to teach you the rules of the game. Often in sports games, the player already knows the rules and is already very familiar with the environment. So the developers have an entirely new challenge. Rather than having to teach a player, they have to replicate what it feels like to experience the sport in real life. Sometimes imitation can be harder than making something entirely original. I think many people can agree that sports games have stagnated a bit in recent years. The biggest changes in sports games year to year are usually an update in graphics or players having changes in statistics or teams, and this isn't because the developers are lazy or just cashing out. It's because bringing a sport with all of these intricacies and minutiae is hard to replicate on a 2D screen. No matter how realistic these games look on the screen, sports are created for us to play in real life. So, when we're trying to recreate any sport into a video game, not everything translates. There are intangibles of sports that just can't be coded. I think the limits of sports games have been reached, and until a serious innovation in technology, we're stuck with yearly updates to essentially the same game. But what happens if you create your own sport? One designed from the beginning to be played with a controller, and built with the idea that the game is going to be played on this 2D screen rather than on a court. Rocket League is exactly this. Even though the concept of soccer but with flying cars sounds like something 6-year-old me would come up with while playing with his Hot Wheels, it manages to ride this ever so fine line of retaining the essence of soccer while feeling completely original. Rocket League accomplishes what so many sports games try to do in that they created the feeling of playing an actual sport, with all the intangibles and nuances of playing sports in real life, making Rocket League a unique experience and a must-play for anyone that loves sports. What am I talking about? You're watching this video because you have 1,000 hours in this game, and you need someone to tell you that that is okay. The cliche of easy to learn, hard to master is so overused by every game that even has the slightest learning curve, but I really do think it fits for Rocket League. The game has a realistic-ish physics engine that grounds it enough to where people just picking up the game have a baseline to work from, and as you continue playing, you'll always find someone who's just a bit better than you. And if you're anything like me, that guy in the Batmobile who just double-tapped the ball right over your head makes you want to get even better so you can beat that sweaty tryhard. Players that have put a ton of hours into this game agree that the most important thing is being consistent. The more consistent you are, just simply the better you are at this game. Anyone can pick up a basketball and shoot a free throw, but it takes true mastery and a complete understanding of the game to be a 90% free throw shooter in the NBA. And Rocket League is no different. Anyone can hit the ball in the net, but it takes mastery to hit aerials exactly where you want every single time. Making intuitive controls for your game is something that seems to be so often overlooked by the players and is so underappreciated. Like, one of the main reasons Call of Duty is so popular is its controls are so airtight. If the controls of Rocket League were any less efficient than what they are right now, then I bet the game would have died years ago. Because having this hurdle of wonky controls is a barrier that would put a ceiling on how players can maneuver their cars. Thankfully, that isn't the case. What often happens though is when players first pick up the game, they get flustered that they can't control their car very well. But it doesn't feel like the controls are the problem. Anytime something goes wrong and your car doesn't go where you want it to go, it's your fault, not the game's. Your brain fighting your body's ability to move sounds much more like a real-life sport than you fighting the game's mechanics. Often in sports games, it can feel like you're shackled to what the developers have coded, that there's no room for innovation or creativity. In Rocket League, this just isn't the case. The way this game has been twisted and bent to the will of its players is astounding. Think of mechanics like the half flip. I bet this maneuver wasn't even discovered in playtesting, and now it's standard in mid to high tiers of play. Psyonix created a playground for us and let the players run wild, and boy did they. How often do you look at a clip in Rocket League and just go, how in the hell did they even do that? The ability to create new mechanics is the magic formula that makes Rocket League special. Sports games are great. They can be a fantastic introduction to the world of video games by giving players something familiar to play with. They allow for people to play as their favorite professional players and create alternate histories where the Browns aren't terrible. Rocket League is the next step in sports games because it takes the familiarity of a sport and bends it just enough to become its own sport, allowing you to be your own favorite player. And until technology can replicate the nuances of playing a real sport, I think Rocket League will be what all sports games try to be.